Hello everyone, welcome to the video tier list of T-side positions. This is the continuation to CT side impactful positions because we already done that tier list and it went pretty well, and honestly a lot of you guys wanted me to do one for T-side as well. So here we are, we're going to be talking about every single position on every single competitive map for T-side and how impactful it would be. I'm not going to necessarily put it into team context in actual team game, but this is going to be more like bug game or face it. So how much can you squeeze out of the position that you're playing without some kind of like proper strats or proper communication, and just kind of like be self-sufficient enough and in order to carry the games. So let's get into the tier list, shall we? Alright, so as usual, go by the maps and we will start with Ancient. So Ancient A side is kind of middle of the pack, I would say, for the impact. I would rate it probably a B tier, because at the times like you are probably going to face the weakest CT, because that guy usually is put in the pugs on A side because that's the least action position. But sometimes you're gonna face like op there, and that's kind of pain in the ass to go against that if you're AK. And there are versatile playstyles that CTs can play against you as well, so you have to be a little bit more careful. But other than that, I don't think it's terrible, because you can get a lot of one-on-one duels, because you know that it's very rare that CTs are playing two towards A in the face it. So one-on-one duels are definitely doable there. Ancient op, however, well, I'm gonna rate it a C tier, honestly. I think Ancient as an oper on T side, I think you have very limited options compared to any other map when it comes to op. It's really tough to get some opening picks going, because mid is even at the like generally middle elo is going to be naded out of the question. It's going to be smoked, it's going to be mollied. Towards A side, CTs are usually not peeking, so again, like doing that kind of peak is kind of inefficient. And then going towards B, you're going to be bombarded again by a lot of nades, and there's very little you can do. You can maybe boost on the box on B ramp, but honestly, Ancient op is a role that even pro players and pro opers struggle with, and it's not as easy because the openings are just not there, and it's kind of hard to lock down those long range lines on the map. So for me, C tier. Let's go for Ancient B. This is a little bit better, I would say. I think this is close to A tier, maybe even close to S tier, but I think generally you can find a lot of impact on this B side. I said that it's going to be bombarded by nades, usually by CTs, but after initial like couple of seconds into the round, usually CTs are out of nades in bugs, and therefore it kind of gives you opening to search, play aggressive, use that AK in your advantage because of the ramp and nature of the elevation there. You have a lot of headshot duels that you can take against CTs who are stuck with an M4, so you're clearly in an advantage there. I think Ancient B is one of the best positions that you can have as a T side if you're playing this map. Ancient Middle, however, I think this is a little bit questionable in my opinion, but I'm gonna honestly put it into D tier. Let me explain why. Ancient Middle is one of the most impactful positions when it comes to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, basically professional Counter-Strike, okay? Because you can play really aggressive and you have different mistakes that you can use your teammates with, but in pucks, you can never do this. Like, it's even miracle that people will flash for you middle on the perfect timing that you ask for it, or they should know the timing, right? But it's rarely happening. What usually happens is that your teammates are not even aware of the smoke. Instant smokes towards window, instant smokes towards donut. You are forced to use your own smoke to deny the molly, and then the flashes are not coming, and it's super painful to play in middle, because it's completely different to be playing in the puck environment and then in a team environment. CTs will usually get mid for free in pucks because there's very little challenge you can do to counter that, and it's kind of hard to commit to it perfectly and kind of articulate from your teammates what you really need. So in solo queue, this is just a nightmare position. I try to avoid it at any cost, and usually what it comes to is just an agreement that CTs will start with the mid control, and in team game you're actually seeing people, Ts and CTs, fighting for this mid control. So it's completely different dynamic. I think in pucks, D tier. Ancient Roamer is probably the second or the best position to play on T side in my opinion, because you can choose where you're gonna go. If you are a guy who wants to join A player and you want to help him there, you're gonna join up with him. If you want to go towards B, you can join up with him. If you actually want to go mid, you're gonna support your mid player. Like, all you have to do is kind of decide where you want to kind of play, and you go there. So there's a vast majority of opportunities that opens up to you depending on your own playstyle, on their weaknesses, on your own strengths. Whatever you want to do, you're allowed to do. And I think this kind of freedom plays well with Ancient T side and kind of complements this rifle territory towards Cheetah and Heaven and Middle, where riflers and AKs especially are shining. That's for Ancient. I'm pretty happy with these, honestly. For Anubis, let's go for A extremity. So extremities are kind of, it's hard to determine where I would like to put them, but I think Anubis is actually a map where A extremity is kind of feasible and completely playable. Towards A, you are probably going to face a lot of one-on-one duels, and with the nature of the map, of the part of the map, CTs are usually dumping their utility pretty early, like smoke and molly, to block any rushes or fast takes. So you actually can wait out that one set of utility in order to then start playing and taking map control properly inside of the A main, maybe even take some peeks towards A. In pro games, it's a little bit tougher because it's quite common that CTs are putting op on A side, and you also want to, as a rifler, you want to avoid these duels at any cost. But honestly, I think Anubis A extremity is pretty viable option to play because, well, Anubis is T-sided and this is one of it. Like, A extremity and B extremities are usually hard to play, but on Anubis somehow you're just finding pretty good success, honestly. So I'm liking this position on pucks. I think it's impactful. I think it can carry you the game quite a lot. However, Anubis op, I would pair it up with Ancient op. On pro levels, you are sometimes even seeing opers playing AK on Anubis. Prime example is Vitality with Zaibu, who becomes a canal player, like playing in the water, trying to take connector, instead of playing op on T-side Anubis. So that is already telling you that finding impact on Anubis might be quite hard because of the choke points, because of the amount of utility CTs are throwing and smokes, and sometimes with an op on Anubis you're just going to be stuck behind the smoke, similar to what we were talking about Ancient, and therefore it kind of dissolves the opportunity to peek into the early round to get some early entry frags to support your teammates. So by these C tiers, I mean that these two op roles would be put into C tier are like supportive by nature, and sometimes it's quite tedious to do on Faceit and in pug environment. So for me, op C tier. Anubis B extremity. So this is a little bit harder extremity to play in my opinion on Anubis, but it's still completely viable. Main reason I would put it in B tier. Should I put it in C tier? I think it's C tier actually. So Anubis B extremity, why I put it 2 tiers lower than A extremity? Well, usually on B side you're gonna face two CTs. One is holding actually B main and one is holding cave, right? Or connector, whatever you call it. And that's why there's some kind of trade or setup potential that CTs can be cooking up on you, and also you're gonna be facing twice as much utility compared to the A side, where you can just wait one set of utility and you're good to go. You're good to work, basically. You're good to peek. As well, like on these B extremities, I quite like how the angles work in Terry's favor, because you can elevate yourself differently to actually peek B side. You can be up on the little platform on B lobby, or you can be on the ground, or you can peek over the smoke, which CTs are usually throwing. Like, there's some kind of playmaking ability, but in general, I think CTs are playing very safe, that they're not giving you too much space to get you a kill. So that's why carry potential is a little bit, it's like two tiers less compared to the A extremity in my opinion. Canals is, I think it's a B tier. I think it's highly impactful position, don't get me wrong, but again, you're attacking that B side where two CTs are actually playing, and therefore they can chain utility much better compared to your one utility or one set of utility. As I said, this is pug environment. In team environment, your teammates are going to offer you the smokes and molotovs and flashes, etc., but here it's all about self-sustainability, and I think in canals it's a little, in like water or whatever you call it, it's a little bit harder to get, honestly. So that's why I think you will have a lot of tools, but those duels are usually CT-sided kind of duels, because they can just give up the connector and play from B side. They can fight you inside connector. They can post up an op, so people are playing connector with an op sometimes. I think you have to, there's just so many things that can go wrong in this area of the map that I put it into B tier. But if everything goes right in your opinion, this is very close to S tier, I'm gonna be honest. But B tier B tier for me here. So middle, definitely S tier. I think I put this S tier on CT side Anubis as well when I did the tier list. I'm not really sure about that, but on T side, definitely this is the best position to play. It's very easy when you have utility and you have methodical utility to take middle control away from CTs and deny any kind of counterplay. It's easy to flash out the ops, smoke out the ops, molly them out. It's really easy to take control of it, and once you have a control of middle, let's say after CT utility are gone in the beginning of the round, then you can start actually activating towards anywhere else. So it kind of intertwines with Ancient Roamer, what I was talking about. Once you take your middle as a mid player, you can leave middle completely and go wherever the hell you want. You can go drop down to canals, you can go to B side, you can go to A side, you can stay on middle, you can split A or B from middle. So you're super impactful at any given moment in the round, which is, I think, the main reason why S tier is the position that Anubis middle occupies here. Let's move on to Dust 2. And you can, by the way, see before I go to Dust 2 that Ancient, it kind of like resolves in the lower part here in the tier list, but Anubis is kind of leaning up upper, and it kind of shows you that Anubis is much more T-sided compared to Ancient when you look at the statistics, etc. So it's already, like, by the nature of it, the map is a little bit easier to play on T-side and much more pleasant to play on T-side. Let's move on to Dust 2. So Dust 2 A Extremity. I honestly think that this is pretty bad position. This is very hard because, well, if you have a spawn and you decide to take a long, this is not how Dust 2 is usually played. I don't consider rolls when you're doing just long takes and you have spawns. Rolls doesn't matter on Dust 2. Whoever has the first spawn, he's going to go out, and that's it. But let's imagine a scenario that you're just playing defaults. Dust 2 actually becomes super tedious as an extremity player because you're just holding one little choke point that almost no one is going to push, and if they push it and you're not holding it or they kill you, suddenly the round kind of collapses because you can get flanked, you cannot split A side anymore, and it's kind of obvious that you're leaning towards the B side or B split. So it's super challenging because you're kind of losing focus on your position, but if you lose focus and at the worst timing, you're kind of tanking the round there. So Dust 2 A Extremity, I think it's really hard to look for the duels because if you're exiting towards long and you're actually looking for one-on-one fight, sometimes you're having Op there, and even if there's M4, he can be literally anywhere because CTs are smoking that door and they can be on the right side, they can be on the left side, they can take different positions, and you're just coming from this little choke point in the doorway, which is honestly pretty easy to kill. So Dust 2 Extremity, I don't like to play that on pucks at all. However, Dust 2 Op, even though I'm not an Oper, sometimes I do play the Op on Dust 2 because it's easily an S tier. Dust 2 is just all paradise, you know it. It was nerfed multiple times where people could have killed someone within the first 3 or 2 seconds into the round, but now it's obviously not possible. Or you can, in theory you can, but you have to get the boost by the teammate. I think it's very unique playstyle that you're having as an op because it's kind of passive. You're not going for opening peaks, but you're kind of waiting for CTs to make a mistake in a rotation to punish them. Because, well, the whole rotation, the map is divided on the left side, which is B, and then the right side, which is A side, and then there's like a middle doorway which you can see pretty much all the time if you're on middle with an op, and it's not that hard shot to hit honestly in pucks. So abusing rotations is just what makes Dust 2 op an S tier for me. Dust 2 B Extremity, I think it's very similar to Dust 2 A Extremity. So you're this tunnel player that is just holding this one choke point and no one is going to push probably the whole game, but if they do, you're in trouble and you have to kill them. If you are forced to make a play and you look for the fight, again, you're coming out of the smallest choke point ever, and they can be on the left side, right side, up, backside. They can even leave B completely. Even lurking on this map is kind of like too obvious. So Dust 2 B Extremity, I'm not a fan of it again. Like, I think it's pretty generally hard to find any impact there. Dust 2 lower, I think, is a much more viable role for T-side. I think you can here actually apply a wide range of playstyles. You can play it more passive, you can help your B Extremity, you can just play it really aggressive, and with the recent changes it's a little bit more dangerous because CTs can make it into the lower tunnels and actually fight you there compared to what was Dust 2 before. But I still think in the mid round you have huge like display of options. What do you want to do? You want to take short, you can do it. You want to go out mid, you can do it. You can split B, you can look for B fights, you can stay in lower tunnel, you can become a lurker. All these kind of things kind of evolves as the round goes on, and I think this is why Dust 2 lower is probably one of the main star positions, even in the higher tier Counter-Strike, when riflers are generally preferring this role. I think it gets a little bit nerfed right now because CTs can jump up on short by themselves. They don't need to boost anymore because the boxes around the CT spawn got changed. So you can get naded much more easily because one player can already be up there, even 2 players or even 3 players if all 3 of them decide to go up. And that's why it's like kind of you have to play around that. But you know, it's new into the game. You have to adjust to the meta, and I think it's gonna be good. But Dust 2 lower definitely in the A tier. Oh my god, I need to drink a little bit. Dust 2 middle, to finish off the Dust 2, I think Dust 2 middle is kind of a B tier. I definitely don't want to put it into C tier compared to like extremities because those are much more tedious. However, on middle, Dust 2 middle, you kind of are relying on your Oper to take space for you because you can not take too much without using your utility properly, and you want to keep that utility actually for the late round because you're probably going to be the guy responsible for taking short, doing short execute, splitting B, doing B split smokes, all that kind of stuff. And that's why smoking door, for example, is probably not going to come from you per se. It might be coming from an Oper or he peeks for you. So again, you're like a little bit the self-sustainability kind of goes down because you're relying on someone else doing the role correctly. That's why I don't want to put it into A tier as well, because Dust 2 lower is just a much more self-sufficient role. Dust 2 middle, here you're relying in an early round on someone else, and then you can kind of get activated. But once you get activated, I think you can find a lot of impact because you can call for people to come short with you. You can go for, as I said, B splits, or you can just drop down to lower tunnel and go towards B. Again, options are there, even though it's Dust 2 and it's kind of stale and everything kind of gets repetitive if you play it long enough. I still think it's pretty good role to play, Dust 2 middle. And as well, like you can dump the middle and you can just join up your teammate in the lower, and you're kind of like 2 lower tunnel players. This is already like viable way to play Dust 2 even at the Faceit level. Okay, let's move on to Inferno. I think A Extremity or Inferno Apps, I would say it's also a B tier. I played it for the majority of my career and I honestly love this part of the map. I think I drilled it enough that it even is enjoyable for me in puck environment. You kind of apply these mind games in this one-on-one duel of Inferno Pit or Apps player with you being Inferno Apps player on T side, that you kind of have to read if they're going to be aggressive. You have to read the economy. If they have MP9, if they have 5.7 Deagle, pistols, whatever, shotguns, they might be close, and you have to adjust your default routines in order to counter that. And I think it adds nice variety of game sense and thinking into making sure that you're on top of. You're just trying to basically mind game yourself into advantageous situation, and I think Inferno Apps is kind of unique for this kind of style because it's truly this one-on-one duel where neither CT or T have a pure advantage, and you have to kind of like guess it correctly. I think it has potential to be a carry-like position, even though it's an extremity. And if CTs are playing aggressive and you're playing well, you're gonna punish them and you're gonna win a lot of rounds on top of that. Inferno Op, for me, I think it's a D tier. Honestly, like I think Inferno Op is again one of the maps where Opers sometimes don't even purchase the Op at all. They just play 5 AKs and they pick up Op only when they kill it on CD side, so they never purchase it, but they can pick it up off the ground, and that's a rule that a lot of teams I know have, and a lot of people in Faceit even have, because again, Inferno is a very choke point-ish map, where on Banana you have tight choke points, on middle you have tight choke points. Even if you're entering sides, or both B side or A side, you kind of have to look 180 degrees to clear out the positions to actually get into the side. With Inferno Op, the trade potential is going to get much lower than that, and I don't generally like it. I think AK is just much more viable, and yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Only thing where I think Inferno Op is shining, and it's not enough to make me put it into C tier or higher, is our after plans. Once you get the bomb down, I think Op on Inferno is legit worth like 2 people or 3 people. Even if you're like 3v5 in the favor of CTs, retaking B side, and you're having that Op on triple box, I still think it's a 50-50 round, honestly. That it's that hard to retake the side already without an Op for CTs. If you have an Op, I think it becomes nearly impossible if you don't whiff all 5 of your shots or something like that. So I think that's the only reason where Inferno Op is kind of viable, and even though it's Inferno, like, if you bomb plant on Inferno, on Pucks even, people will start to save, so your after plant op does not get too much play. So in my opinion, D tier. Oh yeah, let's go Inferno Banana. So Inferno Banana, I think I would put it into A tier. I think this is one of the highest impact positions when it comes to rifler. On Inferno, you have a lot of fights early round, you have a lot of different options to play mid round or late round, trying to go for an execute, trying to go for dry peaks. Sometimes, very rarely, you're gonna, I won't say too rarely, like sometimes you're gonna meet an op on B side, but usually the op will be on A, and sometimes what is really annoying, you will face 3 people on B side, especially if they start banana, so it's really easy to get naded down to oblivion. That's why I'm not putting it into S tier, because sometimes you're just gonna start the round and you're gonna choose a position to play into banana, and then suddenly you see 2 HEs coming to your way and you're 30 HP from the beginning of the round, and that's super annoying to play. It just not allows you to play that aggressive. So countering well banana utility, I think, is must in order to stay this in A tier. Otherwise, if you're a poor banana player, this can even go to B tier, C tier, and you're just tanking the game. And I would say just let one of other teammates that is more experienced in banana or better player play this position, because it's really, really tedious and it's kind of like meticulous when it comes to taking it, asking for utility. But I think it's doable to do it alone. Like, the angles kind of work in terrorist favor in a way where a lot of things can be cleared properly without nades, and you just use AK to your advantage. So I like that. I like that. So Inferno Banana for me, A tier. Inferno Boiler, however, I honestly think, this is hot take, but I think this is S tier. Honestly, Inferno Boiler is one of the best positions to play on Inferno. I will explain why. Very similar to Ancient Roamer and Dust 2 Lower, okay? So there are options where you can play this Inferno Boiler. It's called Inferno Boiler, but you can start on middle. You can start in underpass on Inferno. You can start in T slope and help banana before you actually go on and take your part of the map. You can start on bridge to counter any aggression. You can start second mid and instantly take Boiler. Again, the versatility is there and I love it. You can take middle. It's very easy actually on new Inferno to take middle with the long smoke, with the molly short. Everyone knows this kind of utility, even at level 5, level 6, I hope. You can ask a teammate to come with you from middle. You can do it yourself from Boiler. You have a lot of information because you hear a lot of chunk of the map. Your fast rotation towards B if something happens there, so you can help banana players. I think it's so easy to play this, and there are options for you, and it's honestly up to you how you play it. Again, but Inferno Boiler I think is one of my favorite positions, because there's very little aggression that can surprise you, and there's a lot of things that you can do to surprise your opponents. I really enjoy playing this. I think this is the best position to play when you want to carry your Inferno games together with Inferno Banana. Another would be Inferno Roamer, and I wasn't sure if I should name this Inferno Roamer or Inferno Support player, but this becomes, like, for me, a B tier typical player who kind of stands in a pit and is doing his best to support this Inferno Banana player with flashes, with a molly, with maybe a smoke. Maybe he's responsible for a mid push. Maybe he's kind of getting activated very late round. He doesn't get too much action, but that's fine. Like, someone has to do it in the beginning, because Inferno is such a narrow map that not everyone can get action in the beginning of the round, and that's why I put it into B tier. I honestly think these two roles are interchangeable based on the spawn. So if you're a banana player, you become a roamer if your roamer has a better spawn than you, and that's why you send him into banana and you kind of support him. So it's like kind of supporting each other, even though I said this is self-sustainable, but on Inferno you just, by the nature of the map, you kind of have to support your teammates, because there's nothing else to do in the beginning of the round. There's just banana, mid, and apps, and you are 5 players. What are you gonna do, right? So you have to kind of support one another. Okay, I think that's for Inferno. I think for Mirage Extremity, I would, or a Palace player, or there's a Palace picture here, but you know, it could be a ramp as well. For me, I would definitely put it into A tier. There's a lot of great players who are playing it super aggressively that you can look demos at and just gain some general knowledge how to clear angles and play it safe, but at the same time peek at the right timing to surprise that A opponent. It's fun, honestly, because again, versatility. You can play from ramp, you can play from Palace, you can just play really passive, you can even give up the A extremity completely and go mid and help your teammates. There's very rare that CTs are going to push that A, and even if they do, they're going to push just one choke point, either ramp or apps, and they will never know the other one is clear. You know, it kind of comes into point where they will always second guess themselves that you are there, but you're in fact on the completely opposite part of the map. So that's for Mirage A extremity. Mirage OP, I think it easily goes into S tier. I know that it's very spawn based where you want to get the first pick from. So if you have a good B spawn, you want to go for B or mid peak or underground peak. If you have an A spawn, you want to go for palace peak or ramp peak, and then it kind of gets stale. But then you are getting really activated in late rounds, because I think the less amount of smokes CTs are having, the more impactful OP is. And I think on Mirage CT side, a lot of people are using their smokes preemptively. B player is going to pull up their smoke and they're going to throw it really early. Mid player is going to smoke down connector pretty much every round. A player is going to smoke slope or apps pretty much every round. And kind of these three smokes are used in pucks without any thought into it. And that's why late round, I think it becomes really easy, especially during clutches. I think impact wise, Mirage OP, beautiful map to play. Mirage B extremity. So again, maybe controversial, but I'm gonna put it into A tier. I will explain why. Again, you have kind of options to play around this Mirage B extremity, and you can go underground to actually help middle, or you can stay towards B and you look for fights there, right? But what you're gonna face most of the time is the CT just jumping on the car constantly, and it's difficult shot to hit even for pro players, so I understand if you're not hitting it. But what is going to happen is, on CT side, usually the weakest player is put to this B side position. Again, similarly to Ancient A, what we said in the beginning, because that's the least impactful position or least action position on the map. That's why they want to put like worst player there, and usually you can abuse him if you're playing your Mirage B extremity well. So you can try to bully him with the nades, you can try to bully him with an AK, you can try to go for one peaks, one taps on him jumping, and like it's honestly fun to kind of bully this person away from his position that he's forced to call for help, or maybe he's forced to give up B apartments completely. And that's why I think it's already great impact from you, even though you're not killing him. So that's why I think I would rate it an A. I was considering putting it into B, but I really like the diversity of going underground as well and become like a mid lurk later into the round or during A executes. I think it plays nicely with the whole structure of the map. Mirage mid, I think would be... I think I would put it into B tier. Generally, I think it's a high impact position, don't get me wrong. You get a lot of action, you're gonna get a lot of impact, but sometimes there are rounds where you're gonna face like 3 CTs fighting you. There's gonna be one guy running up from short looking for mid fight, there's one guy in connector, and there's one guy sometimes op in window, sometimes there's M4 in window, sometimes they're gonna jump into underground, and sometimes your teammates are going to fail those smokes into window or into connector or into short, and the flash is behind you, and then you're kind of out in the open against 3 CTs. That's the nature of how pucks are played on CT side, where these 3 positions are going to fight middle, and sometimes you're going to be alone against 3 of them. That's why I think it's a little bit less consistent, I would say. So you can consistently get impact. Sometimes you're going to get games where you're just going to get shut down and you have to look for a solution elsewhere. So Mirage mid for me, B tier. Okay, let's go on. Mirage Roamer. I don't like this at all. I think this is a C tier position. This is kind of like support, and I praise support roles here, that they are flexible, they can go wherever the hell they want, and they kind of get to choose what they want to do into the round. But Mirage Roamer, you're probably going to be responsible for those mid smokes in the beginning of the round, so that kind of counterplays your early round activity. Then you're going to be supporting this Mirage mid player that we just spoke about. Later into the round, you are probably going to be rotating somewhere, and honestly, if I ever play this position, I find myself just running around the map a lot, or like 60-70% of my gameplay is just running with a knife somewhere towards B, towards A, going through the T-spawn, going underground, going middle, like just running around and very little action. So I don't really like it. I think it's definitely one of the hardest roles to play on Mirage, even when you look at the pro games and ratings of pro players. So Mirage Roamer, C tier. Okay, 2 maps left, Nuke and Vertigo. Let's go for Nuke. Nuke OP is actually Nuke Lobby is the first one that we're gonna talk about. I think this is an A tier again. Very interesting position when it comes to mind games because you're essentially playing like alone in an area of the map that is sometimes being pushed, but you're playing against 3 CTs. Let me explain. Well, if you decide to go to radio on ramp, there's 1 CT there. If you decide to go hot, there's 1 CT there on A side. And then when you decide to go door, there's probably 1 guy holding door or main, right? So it's essentially one-on-one, but against 3 different mines, and you cannot like kind of outplay all of them. So you're kind of building layers round by round to make sure that you gather enough information about the ramp player, how he's playing, what utility he's throwing. What about the A player? What about what is he doing in the hut? How are they re-smoking door and all that kind of stuff? So you're kind of keeping track on a lot of things. And if you're a good A player, Nuke Lobby player, you're not going to get overwhelmed by this, and you can actually use it to your advantage. So that's why I think that Nuke Lobby is honestly one of the most fun ways to play Nuke. And if I'm playing Nuke on Puck, this is what I want to go for. Another thing would be Nuke Op. For me, this is a C tier. I don't really like to play Nuke Op. Similar rules apply to what we spoke about in Inferno Op, where kind of teams, even pro teams, have this rule that they never purchase Nuke Op on T side, and the only reason when they pick it up is when the CTs have it and they need to counter it, or when they kill the CT player with an AWP and they pick it up. Okay, so other than that, 5 AKs is pretty viable, I would say, getting those smoke walls outside and going down circuit. But again, smoke walls on Face It, I'm not sure if you know that, so that's why Nuke is such CT sided map on Face It and Pugs, because people just don't know smoke walls, and that is one-on-one how to play Nuke. Without that, you're just generally going to struggle hard. Like, you're gonna be happy with 2 or 3 rounds if you lose pistol. So let's talk about Nuke outside, and I think that this is the reasons why why Nuke Op is so hard. Nuke outside only underlines it, and that's why I think it's D tier. Like, on Face It in Pugs, if you're not playing level 10, 2.5k elo and above, I think people don't know outside smokes, and I think outside you're just going to struggle a lot because you're gonna face an effort somewhere there, and then you're gonna face an op somewhere there. I think it's incredibly hard to be self-sustainable here. You're gonna ask for teammates to throw the smokes for you, and a lot of the times those smokes will either not come at all or fail, and that gives you harm than good, right? So Nuke outside, definitely D tier for me. I hate playing it. I wouldn't recommend anyone playing it otherwise you're gonna struggle and tilt at your teammate a lot. So Nuke Silo is a little bit better because you actually can play your position without playing with those smokes. I think it's still a C tier. You're pretty safe, and this is like aim map paradise because you have a lot of headshot angles that you're gonna cover. But again, it can get really stale, and you can there are rounds where you can get 0 action consecutively, 5-6 gun rounds into the game, and it kind of is boring in my opinion. That's why C tier is the place that I'm putting it. Nuke support, very similar to honestly what I'm saying. Nuke support is the guy responsible for those smokes and flashes and nades outside. Even if you know them as a Nuke support, let's talk about from POV of this role. Even if you know these smokes, your teammates probably don't know how to use them properly, because it's so rare that Nuke support actually knows these nades. So it kind of is like a nightmare to play Nuke when it comes to solo. And as soon as you have a team, Nuke is super fun, and I would probably raise each of these up into B tier, A tier, D tier. Nuke outside would be definitely an A tier, for example. In team environment. In Face It, no bueno. I think it's pretty self-explanatory to say that Nuke is CD-sided map. Look how many positions are in C tier, 1 in D tier, and only 1 Nuke lobby is in A tier, which I honestly like to play. Maybe I'm biased then. Let's move on to Vertigo. So Vertigo Op. I am kind of torn, but I think I would put it into B tier. Vertigo is not a great Op map for T side in my opinion. There's a lot of like verticality into the map, which kind of makes it hard to understand what should you be peeking, especially towards this A ramp. But then later on the round, when you get at the upper floor of Vertigo, both on B side and A side, it kind of gets easier because you kind of understand a little bit better. It's easier to flick as well. Like, it's generally easier to play op late round on this map, in my opinion. Again, because CTs are using a lot of smokes in the beginning of the round, and once the smokes are dissipating and CTs don't have them anymore, the OPer impact increases rapidly. Every time the smoke is thrown and no one dies during it, well, that's when OP gets actually into play. But that's a lot of ifs for me to put it anywhere higher than B tier. So that's why I think playing late round Vertigo OP is the play to go when you're having a match on Vertigo. Vertigo B extremity, I would say this is similarly to Vertigo OP on B tier. I think this is part of the map where you're gonna have a lot of one-on-one duels, but it's like a fake one-on-one duel. Let me explain. So even though you're facing one player on B side, there's another guy on mid that is usually required to support this B guy with the flashes, with smoke, with molly, and in theory it becomes one-on-one in terms of like you are seeing only one person, but he's getting flashed by the teammates all the time. And that is kind of hard to play because you have to count the utility, you have to be always aware that there might be a fight coming whenever you get blind, and Vertigo B extremity can be good if you're a really good aimer and you're getting these one-on-one duels really cleanly. Let's say first couple of bullets, you just kill the CT, and that's when your job is done. Like you don't even need to take that B side in order to force the rotation from CTs. Just getting that kill is good enough for you to open up the rest of the map. Ironically enough, not B side, because everyone will go to that B side, right? So mid becomes open, A becomes open, and your teammates are gonna have much easier time. But it's hard to pull off. That's why B tier, I think, is the place for Vertigo B extremity. Vertigo mid, I think it gets into C tier. It's basically, even though it's a mid, and it suggests that it should be high action position because everywhere else on mid there's a high action on every other map, but Vertigo mid is a lurk position, passive lurk position. There's not much you can do. Even if you go there, there's a lot of angles for you to clear, and even if you go there, you're probably alone. So you kind of become, as a Vertigo mid player, you become this supportive element of the round, and that is sometimes not most fun to do in FACEIT, and I understand why a lot of people are avoiding this. This is my position in my team, but I like to play it. I like Vertigo mid. I think it's really challenging but fun at the same time. But in FACEIT, I always try to avoid it. I would rather become, for example, Vertigo ramp player, which in my opinion is easily an A tier position. A lot of action, a lot of diversion in terms of role, how you want to approach it, a lot of playmaking ability with smokes and mollies and flashes that you can throw yourself. You don't need to rely on your teammates to do that. And even if you do, I think those nades towards ramp are so incredibly easy to throw that people are just... Everyone knows smoke, molly sandbags. Everyone knows how to flash ramp, and everyone knows how to kind of like hold gap or yellow position or short, however you call it. And I think Vertigo ramp is by far the most fun, actionable position that you can take on this map. T side is hard on Vertigo, but this is where you can find your true impact. And then last but not least, Vertigo Roamer, and I think Roamer is getting its B tier in my opinion, very similarly to some other Roamer positions, for example Ancient, where you can kind of decide where you're gonna start the round and finish the round. If you want to help your B player, go and do it. If you want to help your A player, go and do it. If you want to go mid, you can do that as well. There's again layer of decision-making tree that you can go from, and which makes it kind of like fun role for me, and you kind of get to read the opponent. That's why usually the IGL or the leader or the guy with the most game sense is going to go for this Vertigo Roamer position, because I think he can make generally really good mid-round calls or late-round calls where to end the round or how to fake, how to execute. This guy should be the most vocal part of the team because he gets the most information. He plays in the middle of the map, he hears a lot of stuff, he knows, he understands. I think if you're playing this role, you need to raise that voice chat and please talk to your teammates. You're gonna make their lives so much easier. Getting that free elo is going to be sweet. And I think that's it. I'm pretty happy with this tier list, so I'm putting it down in the description below if you want to save it. If you have any concerns about it or you don't agree with it, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always open for discussion because this was my personal tier list and this was not based on the rating or anything like that. This was just based on my feeling, how I think it's likely to carry the game in the position that you're playing. And I'm pretty happy with it, honestly. I think I also explained into detail some of the positions why I think certain way about them. Let me know what you think. And let me also know if you want some other tier lists. So we went over CD positions, T positions, but there are a couple of other things that I can go over when it comes to meta or strategies or approaches to the round. And I can do any of that. I'm a jack of all trades, as you say. Let me know what your tier list for T positions is. Thank you. Bye-bye. Huge shout out to my Ko-fi members for your continual support so I can make videos like this for you. And you should be seeing their names on the screen right now, and if you want to appear here too, please do check my Ko-fi page where you can gain tons of cool and exclusive perks at various tiers of membership. And when I say cool and exclusive, I truly mean it. Go check it out, it's worth it, I promise. Thank you for making my content better and possible.